They call this a DMZ, right? A so-called Demilitarized Zone. But this ain't no neutral territory. This is abandonment. They walled us in. They turned their backs on us. Our own people did that to us, to you.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast's review of DMZ.
This right here, this is something special.
Part of the Now Playing DC Comics movie series.
That's the moment right before lightning strikes.
Hosted by Arnie.
When you see me on the street, you say, that's my OG.
Stuart.
He puts on a good show. I'll give him that.
And Jacob.
I know you came here for me, and thank you.
This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised.
The grown-ups are talking.
We hope you enjoy the show.
Just watch your back. People won't hesitate to kill you in here for whatever you've got.
Today we're discussing DMZ, starring Rosario Dawson, Hoon Lee, and Benjamin Bratt, directed by Robert Patino and Carly Ray. Welcome to Radio DMZ. I'm your DMZJ, Arnie.
That's Stuart.
I don't know about DMZ, but I'm down with NPP. This is Jacob.
Yeah, you know me, but what I don't know is DMZ because I've never heard of this damn thing.
And guess what? Now that you've watched this, you still don't know about this thing. This is part of our DC retrospective because this was a series published by their imprint Vertigo, which, you know, Swamp Thing, all the horror, introduced Sandman, really revolutionized mature comic books and just about different topics. And this was an independent series by Brian Wood and an Italian artist who I cannot pronounce. But this went for 72 issues. Like for again, Vertigo, something that's not superheroes, to be able to go that long. It was a successful series about a civil war in the U.S., a second civil war, where the ceasefire kind of happens right around Manhattan, and that is where it's focused, where it's about a photojournalist in a civil war. Maybe this sounds familiar if you've seen Civil War by A24, but that was kind of this similar premises to this about a photojournalist who gets stuck in there and starts reporting on what Manhattan has turned into. And really, this was post 9/11, we've invaded Iraq, and it was trying to bring, like, what's going on over there? Like, we don't really understand all these little villagers. Why are they fighting? You know, when we're trying to bring them their freedom. It was really like, okay, let's do that in America and really show you, you know, make these politics personal.
So just to clarify, this was an ongoing series because I just assumed this was like a limited series graphic novel, self-contained that we were getting adapted. But this, you said it went for 70-some issues?
72 issues, yeah. 2005 to 2012.
Yeah, start of Bush's second term to the end of Obama's first. Which, again, politically speaking, I don't think we were talking about Civil War, or at least not like we do these days.
That's the interesting thing. When I read this when it was coming out in single issues, and then I bought it in nice deluxe hardcover editions, which I got to break out to reread to prepare for this miniseries to remind me of all these characters from the book that, again, we're not going to discuss at all. But what really stood out to me was the Civil War part this time, because, you know, back then, we were fighting everyone. We're number one. Like, Civil War wasn't a thing we were talking about. Now I feel like it's in the news every day. And I thought Brian Wood came up with a pretty credible way that this Civil War would happen. Like, talk about sending all of our troops overseas so the bases are kind of empty. They're not well guarded, and people decide, hey, we want our freedoms the way we want them, and just start going state by state, not very organized, and it just turns into a movement all of a sudden. And the U.S. military is caught with their pants down because they're too busy fighting those forever wars overseas.
Yeah, that is so 2005, and so not this movie. And yes, if you're going to adapt DMZ this came out, 2 years ago on Max, I definitely think you need to speak more to the times, where it is actually credible that state versus state, we could have a civil war again.
Yes, but not the combination of California and Texas like in that A24 film.
Well, I did see that A24 film, and I did read a few issues of the comic book, and yeah, I guess I was just prepared for something different than what we're here to talk about in Ava DuVernay's miniseries, but One thing I will say about Civil War, the movie that came out this year, that is very much like the scenario of the comic book, at least the early issues. I didn't read that much of it. Jacob, you read all of it?
I've read the whole thing, yeah. I mean, all the stuff we're going to be talking about with Delgado and Wilson, like, these are characters, like, it's great. Manhattan becomes its own nation with their own nuke in that series and, like, goes to war with the U.S.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is a Z character there, but the focus is on this cub reporter photographer who, again, is much more like the character of Civil War. Civil War, it made the choice to not be political. As you say, they put absurd matchups of Texas and California team-ups that no one can imagine happening in 2024, but that really wasn't the point of that movie. That movie chose not to look at politics. It just wanted to create the impression of what it would be like to travel through an America that was war-torn. Whereas this movie, I definitely feel like we're here to discuss today, is trying to talk about the two different Americas and how they might come together. I think there is more of an aspiration for politics. Was it ever political in DMZ? I hear you say they gave the reason being people were tired of us being at war with foreign countries. Was that the focus of the series? It felt like what I read, anyway, was impressionistic. Every issue, he would meet a different group on a different city block and have an adventure.
Yeah, early on, that is how it is. It's just introducing all these different tribes that rise up in this abandoned Manhattan. But there is this ongoing story, and I do think it's impressionistic. Like, you'll just be told, oh, events happened, and you flash forward, and then you're trying to piece things together. But it's a lot about just war crimes, the fog of war, that no one is innocent in war. Like, it gets into, like, tricky politics about BlackRock type organizations hired by the government hiring terrorists to make sure they could secure contracts rebuilding. Like, again, very Halliburton, Iraq War II kind of stuff going on.
Well, Ava DuVernay is certainly not someone that is afraid of politics. I definitely feel like if you know her work, anything from Selma to the documentary The 13th, When They See Us, the TV miniseries recently, she is always taking on, I think America's thornier issues in instituting law, civil rights particularly.
Yeah, I have seen The 13th, that documentary.
I mean, she also made The Wrinkle in Time, but that was kind of a fluke.
Yeah, I watched half of that one time.
And she's partnered with Spike Lee's longtime cinematographer, Ernest Dickerson. They are the directors of this. They are credited as the producers. The writer, I don't really know, but I guess he comes from Sons of Anarchy, sort of a biker gang show. I guess that makes sense. And Westworld as well.
Yeah, it blew me away to discover that this thing existed. You could probably tell I'm a big fan of the source material. Like, I've interviewed Brian Wood, the writer. I have original art from pages of these comics that I have purchased. That's how much I enjoy this. I discovered, like, flipping through Max in December of 23 that this existed, and, like, texted my friend who loves the series too. I'm like, did you know DMZ existed? Like, it's an HBO Max series, apparently. He's like, I've never heard of it. I'm like, neither have I. I'm like, that's not good. If we're super fans, I've never heard of this. I'm worried.
Yeah, and it's not a series. It would seem logical to have an ongoing 4 or 5 seasons. It feels like it should be an HBO show. But they chose to tell a story that will only be confined. The entire 72 issues is reduced to 4 hours of television.
Yeah, this thing had to have had no promotion because Benjamin Bratt and Rosario Dawson, I can't say I follow their careers and see everything they do, but their names, and if they are attached to something, I usually perk up my ears to see what they're working on, and I'd never heard of this. I was happy to see them attached when Stewart said, oh, hey, there's this miniseries called DMZ. I'm like, well, you know, I pretty much live in a comic book graphic novel media space. YouTube ads, Twitter promoted posts, something should have brought this to my attention at some point. But hey, at least it had them on it, so I knew I wasn't going to deal with complete low rent.
No, like I said, Ava DuVernay is Oscar gilded. I mean, they got big names to front this. So I guess the question you're asking is, so why didn't they trumpet this with pride when they were rolling it out? Maybe part of the problem is the Batman. This came out in the shadow of that DC movie coming out in theaters, and that was probably where DC put all of its attention. It was more important to get people to see Batman than it was to see this semi-obscure Civil War comic.
Maybe, but they are Warner Brothers. They can do more than one thing at a time, and especially since this is Vertigo, not really DC, it feels like somebody lost faith in this project somewhere between greenlighting it and it hitting the air to go so underground. I mean, I cannot escape Penguin promotion right now.
Oh, I know.
If I had never seen the Batman, I would still know about Penguin. It's everywhere, and DMZ was nowhere.
Yeah, no, it makes me wonder, like, why do you shelve Batgirl but put this out? Like, what is the accounting? What is the math going on at Warner Brothers?
Well, I mean, I don't think that they're marketing it as a DC comic book. I really don't think that you would know that unless you had read it, right? I mean, I think that this is, when we get into it, this is being sold much more as a political family drama. And it just doesn't have that much kerpow, bam, oomph of a, what I would call comic book action.
Yeah, I think we all have a morbid curiosity about a civil war. Like, what if that does happen? And, like, that should be an easy concept to sell. And if you watch this and weren't told that this was about a civil war in America, you might not guess that. You might just think this is about a gang war.
Mm-hmm. DMZ, DMV, TMZ. You might expect Harvey Levin and all those, like, kids talking about pop culture. Yeah, it's just a picture of Rosario Dawson kind of giving you side-eye. There's nothing about the poster or anything about it that would say, yes, you're about to watch something like Civil War, which, again, feels like it ripped off your comic book.
And Brian Wood did comment on that. He's like, I'm paraphrasing, but it is more or less like, forget about this thing. Civil War is closer to what I had imagined. Like, that is more of my vision.
Well, then, what is this vision? Arnie, give him the plot.
In the near future, America has broken out in a second civil war. The island of Manhattan was declared a demilitarized zone. The residents were evacuated from the island, including our main character, Alma Ortega, played by Rosario Dawson. In the chaos, Alma is separated from her son Christian. The boy is left in the DMZ. Our main story takes place 8 years later. Lots of people still live in the DMZ, which is a lawless land not claimed by either government. Gangs run rampant. Alma goes back into the DMZ to try and find her son. A medic by trade, Alma finds herself able to help many of the DMZ residents. She also befriends a young orphan named Odie. Odie gives Alma the nickname of Z based on her middle initial. Z goes to see her ex, Christian's father, Parco Delgado, played by Benjamin Bratt. Parco is the leader of the Spanish Harlem Kings, and he's also running a political campaign to become the leader of the DMZ, uniting the various gangs in the land. Parco isn't pleased to see Z, and the antagonism goes further when Z finds out that Christian wasn't accidentally lost in the evacuation. The boy ran from his mother to stay with Parco. Christian is now a leader in Parco's gang and goes by the name of Skell. To try and free Skell from this life, Z partners with Parco's major rival, Wilson, who is also running in the election to lead the DMZ. Z is able to get the backing of reclusive Una, who controls the water supply in the DMZ, and the endorsement of Una seems to give Wilson the edge in the upcoming election. Skell is then caught stealing gold bars from Wilson. Skell is taken hostage. Using weapons supplied to him by the US government, Parco leads an attack on Wilson, freeing Skell. Then Skell kills Wilson by throwing the man out a window. Parco is now a shoo-in to lead the DMZ, but Z throws her hat in the ring as a replacement for Wilson. On election day, Parco sends his men to intimidate the voters, and uses Odie to deliver a bomb to the US barricade at the border of the DMZ. Skell finds out the boy is to be used as a suicide bomber, so he rebels against his father and saves the young child. Skell and Parco get in a fistfight, and Skell wins. Skell and Z banish Parco from the DMZ, making him go to his USA allies. Then Z arranges with US agents for Skell to also be let out of the DMZ. Skell agrees to leave, only to find out Z has decided to stay in the DMZ. She has won the election, and she believes she can help the residents of the DMZ as it becomes its own sovereign state, and credits roll.
And as we start, the banner reads, "Welcome to the United States of America," and the images show people being thrown in cages and forcibly restrained and border guards wearing hazmat suits. And I go, okay, maybe this is why it got buried, right? Woke. People are afraid. You shouldn't have not expected this. Ava DuVernay, if you saw the 13th, she definitely is going to call out racial injustice, but I do feel like that's a trigger and not necessarily something that's going to bring mass audiences together. Certainly not necessarily comic book thrill-seeking audiences.
Yeah, children in cages, hot button issue.
Yeah, illegals. We're finding out that the border is constantly changing, and we're shown a map. And I freeze frame on this map because I am desperate to understand the political stakes of what's going on here.
Which will never be brought up, so good luck deciphering it here.
Well, I mean, there's a United States that is clearly on the east side. Everything in Brooklyn, which is where this facility is the United States of America. So reads the banner. And if you cross over into Manhattan, it is this no man's land where, there's a ceasefire. On the other side, I see the initials FSA, which are the Free States of America, and late in the game, we will meet in episode 4 a woman that maybe represents them. But by and large, what the FSA is, why it's fighting the United States of America, and why they've decided to call off fighting in Manhattan, I don't think is ever properly explained.
You have to wait till hour 3 or 4 just to learn what FSA stands for. Like, they say it throughout, and then they'll finally say Free States of America late into the game.
It's hard to track, and I do think that probably one of the biggest failings of this is that we are finding out about a civil war where we don't really understand what's at stake, who we should be rooting for, what it means that the United States and the FSA are against one another.
This is one of my frustrations. Coming in, I didn't know much about this project, but I knew that there had been a civil war. This was going to take place in the Demilitarized Zone between those two warring factions. But much like the A24 film earlier this year, I feel like you need to give some lip service to what caused the breakdown, where the fighting started, how did it get to this point, and which side are we to more align with as an audience? Or are we supposed to bring in our own biases where we could align with either side, Republican versus Democrat, what have you, North versus South? But this is going to try to tell a much more personal story in the backdrop of a gang-ridden land. The Civil War seems almost incidental in this storytelling, and that's a frustration for me. Not a fatal flaw, but something I would have preferred to see more of.
I'm sorry, I will never get over Parko and his people just always hanging out on the street like they're having barbecue on Sunday, blasting the radio. Yeah, you gotta get me to buy in, like, do a little world building, get me to buy into the concept to be excited about, even if it doesn't pay off. That's why A24 Civil War was so successful. They got me excited about that world. I had to see how it went down, and I went to that movie. This, it does none of that, titillating world building. Again, we want to see this. We want to explore it, so give us a little.
I know, I'm really biting my tongue, because I don't want to review the A24 Civil War here, but there's just so many comparisons that can be made, and I had some of the same letdown with both of them. I think the most exciting thing in that A24 trailer is we're Americans. What kind? That never really goes anywhere.
Well, yes, I'm agreeing with you that it's frustrating not to know what is politically at stake, because this is the project that really makes that central. It's really important that we take a side, right? Because symbolized in the Civil War, Ava DuVernay has made the choice that I'm going to tell a civil war through a family. What happened to a mother, a husband, and a son is what's happened to this America. So by knowing them, we know what happens to us. That is the conceit that could work, except if we never understand the political positions of said characters or the factions that they represent, then it just ends up being soap opera. Then it just feels like a family squabble and not a civil war.
Which again, once I had to adjust my expectations, I could go for a good family drama against this backdrop. I mean, I don't know that we needed it to be a dystopian DMZ, because a lot of it does really just resemble urban blight of any gang-affected area.
I mean, clearly the model here is Escape from New York and The Warriors, right? Two movies that are a lot of fun, that do one of my favorite things a movie can do, which is take a city, personify it, make it so that block by block you're getting a new world and a new gang. And yes, that this woman who is on the outside and has this story about losing her child on evacuation day is now finally having 24 hours to go back and see 8 years later if she can find said son. That's a really good hook. I don't need to understand the war if you're just going to remake The Warriors.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking Warriors with the radio DJ we're going to get later on in this film. But yeah, I think the influences are pretty obvious.
And being a fan of the source material, I watched the trailer before I put this on. I adjusted my expectations. And I agree, like, okay, it's going to be smaller. You're going to go in. It's going to be about looking for your son. But then you, like, expand and I guess they'll try to say she discovers a bigger world in the DMZ. But we'll talk about how successful they are at that image. But I don't think this is a bad entry into getting into the story. If you're going to drop all the journalism stuff and, like, try to really streamline this story, Z is a character in the comic. Again, they totally changed her. She doesn't have a kid. She's like in her 20s, whatever. But this is a good entry point for something that's lightly based on a comic I like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mission kind of movie, kind of Apocalypse Now. In the same way that Sheen had to find Colonel Kurtz, this woman has to go into the middle of a war zone and find someone that's really important to her and see if they can be saved. Good hook. But yes, it now puts a lot of pressure on you to be Escape from New York and have that action, have those colorful gangs, Mad Max, Warriors, all of that stuff here. I'll just go ahead and say the frustration I have over the course of the 4 episodes is it doesn't feel like Rosario Dawson's character really gets to see that much of Manhattan. There's really only 1 or 2 set pieces.
All we get to see is a matte painting of a skyscraper turned upside down. Like, that is it. And again, you win us over with the story, but this is what we're coming for. We want to see the destruction. What did you do to the Statue of Liberty or whatever, all the famous sites in New York? Like, you want that. You want that in a story about a civil war in New York. And we get a matte painting.
Well, I'm not going to knock the matte painting.
It's a fine matte painting, but it's only 1.
Yes. But my problem is, again, when I realize as time goes on in the 4 hours, that basically she's going to spend most of the time hanging out at a health clinic in Tompkins Square. And that just isn't the Warriors, right? Like, the whole point is you're on an odyssey. You're going neighborhood to neighborhood. You never double back. You're always rediscovering what the city has become and all the different freaks and their politics. That seems like a thing that you don't abandon. If the one concept you can give a lot up, you don't have to have the photojournalist idea from the comic book, but you need to have Manhattan be a character.
Early on in that comic, you go to Central Park, and it's a great storyline about how all the trees have been chopped down because people were freezing and needed the fuel. And these, like, extreme environmentalists basically, like, took it over and have been reseeding it to rebuild it. And it's like this side story that just comes up every once in a while. And, like, you have great little moments like that. Like, you get none of that flavor in this. It feels very bland once we get into the story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this looks bad, but it was not trying to be a road story, though. This is going to be more about gang warfare than it is going to be about going through different gangs like the Warriors or Escape from New York. Here, this is going to become very political. I've never read the comic, so I had no expectations going in on this as to what this might be, but I'm adapting pretty quickly as we get to this first episode that this is going to be focused very much on Rosario Dawson and her son.
Just to put a fine point on this, in case people have forgot, The Warriors is the story of all the gangs of New York City descending into one park and having a messianic leader tell them we can unite and fight the cops, and then he's assassinated.
Yeah, there's a scene just like that in this.
Oh yeah, I mean, Benjamin Bratt is more or less going to give the same turf speech, but I cannot dig it, because it will not go there. This is not the story of multifaceted, multidimensional Manhattan. And I think it has to be interesting. This whole thing about Rosario trying to find her kid gets resolved pretty quickly. She goes to this clinic. She makes friends with Meryl Streep's daughter and helps her out, and eventually just gets wind of the fact that her son is a graffiti artist that kills people and writes their name on a wall.
Yeah, a lot is glossed over that could be more fleshed out regarding Z getting into the DMZ and how she meets up with these medics and everything else. And yeah, there's this clinic manager, Rose, who's going to take her around the DMZ. But by the same token, to preview my thoughts, this is far too long at 4 hours for the story they're trying to tell.
For trying to find your son? 2 hours, come on.
Each of these episodes is almost exactly an hour. So, unlike the Disney Plus shows where they come in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, no, this is a full 4 hours of programming and does not need to be for the story they're going to be telling. And so, yeah, I think they spend their time in the wrong places on this because, yeah, I have a lot of questions that wouldn't take a lot of money to address. You know, I don't need them to have more sets and more locations in order to just provide a little bit more mortar to the structure that we're looking at.
All right, so this first episode, she goes to the health clinic and starts to find her purpose. Given that she has medical training, she, of course, is going to find her way there, help take out bullets out of people. She also is going to run into an orderly that she used to work with, who now is running Chinatown and happens to be going to be the next, he's campaigning to be the next governor of the DMZ.
This is Wilson. Yeah, he's the head of Chinatown. And again, I talked a lot about the election in my plot summary. I have questions. Like, if you don't actually have a government and you don't have law enforcement and such, who enforces an election?
The people with the guns do.
So that's not really an election, that's a revolution.
I mean, you think about when we brought voting to, Afghanistan and Iraq and the purple fingers and all of that, like, there were soldiers standing around those ballot booths, and I think that's what the comic went for. This is such a copy of a copy of a copy of the source material. I think that's what they're going for.
I think they're going for the idea that there are two different Americas, and they're not doing a particularly sharp job of satirizing either one. Maybe they don't want to offend people any more than they already might be. You tell me, is this a blue state or a red state? I can't tell what Chinatown represents. What I hear is this guy is against having rule, that he feels like people can rule themselves. So I guess he's small government. I guess he's a Republican. I guess that's what they're saying, maybe?
Libertarian. Just the small tribes all running themselves.
I really tried to make sense of the politics that are going on here, and we're in an election period as I'm watching this, as we're recording this, and I am trying to figure out what are the subtle differences between these two politicians, but it seems like there's not subtle differences, there's vastly different entire ideas of what government should be between these two, but they're literally given one debate with about 5 minutes per candidate to say their piece on this, and it's not enough for me to say one is better than the other. Honestly, I kind of thought Benjamin Bratt was going to be the good guy because he's Z's ex and the father of her child. Even during the campaign speech, I mean, both of these guys are gang leaders. Both of these guys are criminals, but I knew one was going to eventually be the nemesis. And I thought early on that could be Wilson, but it turned out, no, it's going to be Parko.
Yeah, they tease a long time. We've seen Benjamin Bratt early into the first episode, but it will take Z all of episode 1 before she realizes that the person that Wilson is running against is her ex. And that means that her son is his henchman that's going around stealing gold from Wilson and killing people. And so the mystery is over. Again, I want to underline the fact that you told me that this was about the search for a missing son, and after hour 1, we know where the son is, and he's not that hard to find.
Yeah, but doesn't this feel like such a dangerous situation with all these tricky politics, like when Z decides to turn around and go back into the DMZ at the end of hour 1, aren't you just on the edge of how is she going to survive all this? Like, how is she going to navigate this to save her son? Because I never did. I'm like, okay, I expected that to be the ending.
it doesn't seem that hard to get out of there. One thing I keep hearing is some people have chosen to stay in the DMZ and some people are trapped there. But honestly, if you can find your way to the subway, I don't know how it's that hard to get out.
And my knowledge of DMZs isn't the greatest, but what I normally see depicted in film for a DMZ is that it's a wasteland, that nobody is there, because it is guarded on both sides, and if you get in the middle, that can cause a war. The whole thing about a DMZ is it's a land where there's not supposed to be any combat, there's not supposed to be any armament. Sometimes they can have landmines in them and things. So to see such a thriving populace in a demilitarized zone was a shock for me. I'd just never seen it depicted this way, and it didn't seem like a great military border to have so many people in between.
And this is my problem, like, with just too much sunlight in this miniseries. It never feels dark and scary. In that comic, Manhattan, like, you were always, if you're going outside, you're ducking and covering because there's just snipers and gangs roving around. Like, it was dangerous. And like this, Z's just going to wander around in between gangs, and I never fear for her life. I don't fear for anyone.
Yeah, they're not doing anything. Again, we have one scene where everyone goes to Central Park and we see all these gangs lining up behind Benjamin Bratt. But honestly, yeah, it doesn't feel like the Warriors, where every neighborhood, there's a new threat.
No, we're going to see there's a lot of gangs in the city. They're going to get name checked. But really, it's only two gangs that matter. The Spanish Harlem Kings and then Wilson's gang in Chinatown.
Which are, yeah, the two candidates that are debating about who should be running the DMZ. And what, I guess, makes this more clear-cut is the fact that Wilson is being supplied by the FSA, we'll find out, and that Benjamin Bratt's Parco is taking money from the U.S. Army. So, again, it really would matter for the audience to know what that means. Should we be rooting for the USA? Should we be rooting for the FSA? I don't really have any investment in either. It's whoever's supplying the guns. And so it's kind of a non-debate.
And what's interesting is the comic has that kind of ambiguity. Like, it never tells you who's right. Everyone's bad. But like that one, you get so absorbed in it. This, like, yeah, they don't give you enough. So I'm just always wondering, is it bad that he's getting weapons from the USA? Is that going to help? I don't know.
But the comic, you're invested because you have a reporter that's trying to get out. That's the thing you care about.
And he's trying to make sense of everything going on there, yeah.
Right, yes. His job is to capture things in photographs, so you are invested in every moment because of that character. Our character here, Z, I guess the point is she wants to be able to find her son and leave. She gives every indication that nothing will keep her here, even when she meets a surrogate son who is wandering around without really much purpose. But we have this Odie character who needs a place to stay and a person to care for him because his grandfather is dead and still haunting him.
Yeah, cut this whole subplot, get rid of it. There's a half hour where you could excise from this miniseries.
Yeah, it was quite obvious that that ghost of a grandfather was not an actual person there, despite how they try to trick us initially that it might be a real person. And it's pretty quickly revealed when Odie's friend, a girl named Nico, comes up and the Cedric ghost disappears. But I do think that anything involving Odie and Nico, you could have cut a quarter of this entire special down by removing them and lost nothing. I get that she needs to have a surrogate child to take care of, and especially at the end of this, since she's going to let her biological son leave, she needs to have a surrogate son to take that place, dramatically closing that loop. I get that. And I think that the actor playing Odie gives a good performance, but I just wish that we were spending more time on core characters and a little less time on the life of an orphan in the DMZ.
It's all about how you play it, right? I mean, if these were exciting scenes, but like they play around in an office space and find some stuff to barter with, and later they meet a homeless guy that shows them like famous paintings that he keeps in his tent because he used to work for the museum and now they're out here in the open. They seem so scattered and unimportant that, yes, you really wonder why we're spending time on this when, there's a civil war going on. But problems are bigger than that. I agree. We need Alma to love the DMZ. This is the story of someone that came here only to get her son and get out and ends up falling in love with the people here. And that is not the story that ends up getting sold. That is not what I see as we get into the next episodes. Her ride gets shot. It should be said the episode 1 ends with the person that got her in there being executed by the U.S. government. So she's now kind of trapped, but she doesn't really seem that concerned about it. And it isn't long before she's buddying up with other real powerful people like Una.
No, I wish that they'd sold more that she had the 24 hours because, when her guide is killed, I don't really feel like there's any risk there. Again, what I think one thing they do that might be a mistake is the way they decide to conclude episode 1 with her finding the graffiti and then her adult son seeing that she spray painted over it. I feel like the entire arc between Z and Skell is poorly paced and not well developed in a way that would interest me. Because, again, I have zero expectations when I turn on this miniseries. And episode 1, you've pulled me in. I want to know what's going to go on between Alma, or as we're calling her Z, and her son. We see the flashback to when they got separated. What has happened to the son? What is going on with him? And how are they going to reunite? And they really settle that actually pretty easy in the second episode, and then it becomes just a familial drama instead of a search. And I liked it more as a search.
Yeah, you've got to have tension. You've got to have her, yes, it's got to be something that matters. Basically, let's get to it. Episode 2, she finds her son, and he's like, I don't like you, and I don't go by Christian anymore, and stay out of my way. Door slam.
Roll credits.
Yeah, all right, I guess I should go.
And on top of all of that, she didn't lose him in the crowd. He ran away. He's like, I never wanted to be with you. Even when I was a young boy named Christian, I didn't want to be with you.
And just since we're talking about backstory, we'll go ahead and just fill in the complete picture. Who he was running towards was his father, Parco, who is the person that he is still working for and sort of blindly idolizes. We see that he does his dirty work. If Parco needs his political enemy to be attacked, he'll make that assassination. He'll rough up a gang leader who says he doesn't want to vote for Parco. He'll steal gold for Parco. He does everything for his father now and believes that his mother hurt her father by sending him to jail. And so again, the Civil War, the FSA versus the U.S. is supposed to, in some ways, represent this. The family drama is supposed to inform the larger fight. I don't really like these performances. I think I heard you give some compliments to these actors. I don't think there's a single interesting performance in this. Maybe Benjamin Bratt is a little bit fun, but I don't like these characters.
That was my note. I'm not going to come in here laughing at Benjamin Bratt. I guess he gives a fine performance as this gang member warlord, but there's nothing interesting about it. Nothing interesting with what Rosario Dawson does.
I think that the actors here are fine. They are effectively selling the drama. I feel the problem is with the writing. I feel like their characters are underwritten and their plots are melodramatic. I actually really like the stuff Benjamin Bratt does, and I often look at him as second-rate Harry Hamlin, because I discovered him way back in the Law and Order days on NBC, and so I think of him as kind of just a TV actor. And when I think of the movies he's been in, a minor role in Doctor Strange, we made great fun of him in Catwoman, but I think here he plays this gang leader really well. He's my favorite character in this whole thing. I'm actually rooting for Parco more than I'm rooting for Z or anybody else, and I think that's because Benjamin Bratt's giving it his all.
And maybe he's a little bit more fun. I mean, again, what these directors seem to be allergic to is the idea of campiness. They're so self-serious about healing America's divide that they don't want to have any fun with the animosity. There's no good action here. There's no good fights.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Benjamin Bratt does deserve at least an Emmy nomination for being able to say the 2 4s with a straight face. Yeah, like, to me, that's campy, but they're going to play these names seriously.
Again, it's like playing the Warriors without the jokes. Can you dig it? No. I want to laugh. Part of the fun of that movie is the outrageousness of it. And everything here is just, it's flat. It's really uninteresting, melodramatic. As you say, it's just like she goes to see Parko and they just bitch about old times. And his new lady is like, gets in a cat fight. These are things I would expect to see on Days of Our Lives, not in a civil war.
Which makes the setting for this very curious to me, because obviously the ambitions here are to tell a family drama, and so to have this huge socio-political backdrop to it feels wasted and unnecessary. This could just be taking place in Los Angeles. It doesn't need to be taking place in a civil war.
Just parents who separated and their son became a gang member, yeah.
So I guess we'll skim over the other characters. It's even worse for the supporting characters, but we do spend some time with Skell. After the son rejects Mama, he goes to a nightclub and starts having a romance with some singer that ends up being Wilson's kind of niece. Again, the straining that they're doing, that everyone knows each other, that this is a family fight, a family feud, feels ridiculous, frankly.
Yeah, they say there's like 300,000 people still in Manhattan. You shouldn't know everyone if that's the case. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, logically you wouldn't, but again, it's the conceit of this movie that it's a family affair, that civil war is about fighting with your relatives.
This romance is another thing that honestly I'd cut. What's interesting about this woman that he's dating, her name is Tenny, and it's going to be revealed she's the secret radio DJ that's been going on the air and talking to the city and is like the voice of the city and really providing exposition for us, the audience, as to what's going on with the elections and who is what and what's going on. And I find that character interesting, but Tenny and her relationship with Skell never really goes anywhere. It doesn't become a situation where he has to choose between staying with his woman or leaving with his mother. You know, you could have that kind of Oedipal thing going on with this triangle, but that he has a physical relationship with Tenny does not play out in any interesting way.
Days of Our Lives. This is what I'm saying. Just lots of scenes of people taking off their shirt and laying in bed talking about how they don't feel well. I kid you not. Like, this is a Civil War movie? This is what you conceived when you thought about America ripping itself apart?
When you meet Una, who controls all the clean water in New York, I'm thinking of Mad Max, you know, controlling the water and all that. No, it's just, they're just wearing dresses like maybe they're from Amazon Island, from Wonder Woman a little bit, maybe, if you squint.
Yeah, I wish there was more to this. This comes up in the second episode, this Una character, and I'm like, good, we know about the Chinatown gang, we know about the Spanish Harlem Kings, now let's learn about who's living up in the cloisters. And this new faction, led by Saturday Night Live's Nora Dunn, in the strangest bit of casting I've seen in a while.
This is an SNL actor?
Yeah, she was on SNL from like 85 to 90. I mean, a long time on SNL. Nora Dunn was a big name in the late 80s SNL. And here she's given a completely dramatic performance as the head of the cloisters and controller of the water. And she's then going to disappear and cameo in the fourth episode. This does not become an important faction. I thought in episode 1, we met a couple of factions, and in episode 2, we'd expand the world, but that's not really what happens. She becomes a plot contrivance that Z has to try to get onto Wilson's side so Wilson can win the election, and she's doing all of this so she can move against Parko and try to reconnect with Skell. The worst thing about this miniseries, and this miniseries isn't shit, so I'm not meaning to rip on it, but the one thing it does the worst is tie together Z's quest to reunite with her son, and Z, through happenstance, getting involved in the major political election that her former intern is running for against her ex. I really needed more direct lineage of what is motivating her to go through all of these things for Wilson.
Yeah, he was an orderly that used to hit on her. Let's just put it real bluntly. Wilson used to grab ass when she worked at a hospital, and now she's campaigning that he should be the one to beat her ex, who just happens to be his political opponent. Convenient, sure, but yes, not even that interesting. I guess I can suspend a lot of disbelief if there's something really exciting about the matchup, but who cares, again, about these performances, about these characters, about the way that it's being framed here? I don't care who wins this election. It doesn't seem to matter one whit, whether it's Benjamin Bratt or the Chinatown gang. But because Una controls the water, she can literally turn on the fire hydrants, and people need it, so they're willing to do... It's about buying votes. The third episode, we literally have Rosario Dawson going around and trading house calls, medical supplies. I'll give you health care if you'll vote for Wilson.
Isn't that what Obama did?
That's what every candidate does. That's how you get elected, by promising stuff. Either to corporations or to poor people or to whoever.
Yeah, it's more than promising. Like, she's literally being like, do you want a Band-Aid? Then you have to vote my way. I mean, this is a little bit more skeevy.
That's probably the least skeevy thing going on in the DMZ.
Yeah, well, eventually we're going to find out. She's just going to stumble on the fact that, again, that the United States is supplying Parko with guns. They want him to win?
Why, though? Like, I never understand. Again, this is a development that comes very late into this. They have to get these guns going right away. The soldiers are ready to go, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm being told this in the third hour of a 4-hour miniseries. Were they improvising and just making this up as they went?
My impression, the way it's played, is that while Parko and Wilson are running to create a free DMZ, the fact that Parko is taking weapons from the U.S. means that he's actually a pawn of the U.S. And so he would be a corrupt leader of the DMZ. Now, this is never stated, but this is like the impression that I get.
But Wilson's taking guns from the FSA.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. It's no different on the other side. It's not like one is bought by the outside and one is true to the people. They are both puppets of these external forces we don't understand and they don't think are important to explain. So that's the mistake. It just ends up being a reason for why son falls out with father. That up to this point, Skell is, I love dad, I'll do anything for dad, I'll go steal gold bars for dad, and when I get locked up for that, I'm not going to say anything. But when Alma comes to her son and says, your dad took guns from the U.S. government, suddenly he's killing henchmen and betraying his father. Convenient. But not before he kills Wilson. And I don't know, I guess this movie's closest attempt at a exciting shoot-'em-up action scene.
Yeah, Skell gets caught stealing the gold bars, and Parko is going to get his guns and break out his son, and yeah, this is the end of episode 3. I thought this would be the end of episode 4, to be honest. I was surprised that this big climax that ends with Wilson's death, I was shocked that it happens in the 3rd episode, not the 4th.
I mean, they need something to energize. And yes, what will happen to the election if there's only one candidate alive? I mean, Z was already in the race, so it doesn't really feel like a big deal that she's suddenly the name on the other ticket. That's what Una had already done an episode ago.
I mean, they really did predict this whole Harris taking over for Biden thing, I guess, with Z stepping in for a dead Wilson.
Yeah, you say that, but I mean, again, that should be really important. Like, this movie should feel really timely in the way that it's wondering, what can a brown woman bring to a torn, divided country? These are questions we're asking. We want to know why Rosario Dawson has a magical ability here.
And the problem is, all their political speeches feel like, you know, when you're in junior high and someone's running for student body president, they're like, we're going to have pizza every day for lunch. And okay, we'll vote for him then. Like, that's how these speeches feel throughout this series.
Yeah, I don't really know what's at stake. I just know that Skell is getting more and more disillusioned, particularly since there's a new kid on the block named Babyface that's getting hand tattoos like he used to get, and Dad seems to be getting a new favorite. So maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's the U.S. government and the guns, maybe it's just that this guy is a brat. I don't know. I really don't like Skell, but I think it's supposed to be heroic that he ends up siding with Mom and trying to help her when it looks like they're going to take that orphan kid and turn him into a suicide bomber.
But where is Skell's redemption arc? Because Skell turns totally to the dark side when he is rescued from Wilson, and this seems to be, if you're not going to make it the mother is seeking the son, then it needs to be a better defined battle for the soul of the son between evil gangland father and kind healer mother. And Skell is going to completely go onto his father's side and throw Wilson out the window, and there's no real redemption for that. There's no moment where Skell has to sacrifice anything to atone for this act of murder.
He kills the henchman Caesar, and he stops the little orphan kid from walking down a tunnel and blowing himself up and killing some FSA people.
Yeah, he does good things, but he never atones. There's no punishment for this act of murder that he commits.
I believe that the rescue of a child, the saving of a child, is meant to fill in for the loss of Wilson, who, frankly, I didn't care about.
I agree with you, Stuart, and I get, Arnie, that it's not satisfying. You're right.
I don't like any of these people. I don't care what they do. It didn't anger me that he killed Wilson. I just never liked this guy. I mean, he's got a lot to atone for. He's got a whole wall full of names of people that he's killed. Does he feel bad about that? Are we to feel bad about that?
At least paid over it or something. Don't keep that up there as a brag.
Or maybe those people did need to die. I mean, you never know because this movie refuses to take a position. It's so waffly. Again, what does it matter? How am I to know who's right and wrong here? What am I invested in? I thought this was the story about a mother rescuing her son, and it's just become a big old mess.
I agree that by the time we get to night 4, I'm ready for this to end. And yeah, the suicide bomb plot with Odie, this show never felt dangerous enough that I thought it would kill Odie. I wish that they had given me a reason to think that Odie was actually in danger. But even Benjamin Bratt, who I think is giving a good performance here, doesn't come across dangerous enough. He doesn't come across so Machiavellian that he would kill kids left and right. And so the fact that he uses Odie for this just feels like an excuse for Skell to come around instead of an actual motivated act.
We're just to understand that Skell needs to side with his mother and that father is bad. So this last episode really skews it where it's hard not to see it any other way. And it ends with them both taking off their shirt and punching each other to some really hilarious, like, kung fu movie, like, Foley effects. I was laughing at how bad the sound effects are when they're punching at each other. It feels like a karate movie from the early 70s.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, it's bad. This action is bad. You got to admit. I mean, that's one thing that Civil War has up on this movie. You could complain they both are apolitical. They both say we don't care about the politics about what would divide America and create this war, but they can show you the horror of it. They can show you in little and big moments the guns, the explosions, the chaos in the street. Whereas, again, this movie feels like, I don't know, one of those Mad Max ripoffs from the 80s where they just went to a mall and turned the lights down a little bit and had people wear fur coats. It's not that post-apocalyptic.
And then after Odie is saved and father and son get in their fist fight and they send Benjamin Bratt off to be with the U.S. who had supplied him with the guns.
Why are they arresting him? That's what I don't understand. He was their ally.
I thought they were taking him, like, into their land.
In handcuffs.
Yeah, think about it.
I don't know.
I mean, they were just mad that he screwed up their plot to start a shooting war again?
Well, wasn't he just about to bomb them with Odie?
No, he was going to bomb the FSA so they could go to war again.
See, these two sides are so ill-defined, I wish that I had understood that better.
Yeah, we are to believe that the U.S. government doesn't want to invade Manhattan unless this guy does his thing, unless this child brings a suicide vest to the FSA. And that's just, again, this thing looks so small. It's hard to believe that that's the powder keg that would erupt a whole civil war in Manhattan. That would suddenly make this a military zone again.
But the big twist here at the end is that Z has been working with the FSA to get passage out of the DMZ for her and her son, and Skell agrees to leave the only life he's ever known, but Z is going to now stay and be the leader of the people.
Yeah, she's gone from A to Z. I literally think that that's why she's called Alma, is that they wanted to just show that she has changed entirely. Her focus has gone from, I want to get my kid out of here, to actually loving all the children of the DMZ. And meanwhile, her son has gone back to being Christian again, that he is no longer going to be the street tagger Skell for skeleton. He's not deaf. He's a good Christian kid that's just going to go live in the FSA, whatever that means, with Tenny.
Yeah, we don't, like, is that bad? Is that good? I would think living in the USA would be better, but who knows, though? I did think Z was because she became the DMZ by the end of this, and that was like an abbreviation for that.
Yeah, I think that's some truth to that as well. But I don't buy it. Again, I don't buy it in Rosario Dawson's performance. I don't buy it in the scripting. At no point do I see her fall in love with this DMZ.
No, of course not.
It makes no sense that she wants to be their politician. And do what, exactly? How is she going to keep two giant factions from invading and blowing them all away tomorrow? I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly feel like she could have been more help as a medic than she could as a politician. She's skilled as a medic.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they thought this was a pilot to a show. It seems to me like the themes are so big here, and they really could have, not that I'm asking for it, but they could have really taken this concept and gone for years and years. So maybe someone had ideas for what her political life would be like in season 2. Because they didn't make that, we get to cover it as a movie.
So Jacob, Stewart, do you recommend what we're calling the movie of DMZ? Jacob.
Look, this is not an enviable task to, like, here's 5 years, 72 issues, whatever that is, 6 years, 7 years worth of comics, and get 4 hours out of it. That would be tough for me as a fan of that series to go, okay, how would I narrow this down to just 4 hours? And I have ideas with what I would do. The way they go, the way they frame this, kind of makes sense to me. I could see the thinking. I could see it on paper not being a bad idea. But then we got to talk about budget. We got to talk about sets. There's just so much to talk about. Like, it is the story that's the problem, but it's so much more. Like, they end up doing a lot of, you called it out, soap opera type stuff, which I just found boring. It was a pain to have to go from episode to episode. I don't like soap operas, so I don't like it even when it's put into this kind of cool setting. They can't really execute on it. It's just not satisfying. I could see what they were attempting to do, and they did a mediocre job at it. It's not bad. I wish this was laughable. I wish I was cracking up at Benjamin Bratt, but no, it just, instead, I'm just bored. And so, yeah, solid not recommend. Easy to pass on this one. Most people did, I think.
Stewart.
It's hard not to be disappointed, right? Because the concept is so good. The few issues that I read of this are such a good hook. We've seen Civil War. It's like, oh, this should be easy to make interesting. Even if it doesn't ultimately prove good all the way through, it should grab us. And what's kind of shocking about this is how boring it is start to finish. I never care about anything that happens here. I came for a big stirring war movie, and I got a daytime soap opera in which we're told again and again, the only thing that we should think important is this glowering graffiti artist. And I never care about Skell. I don't care if he gets out. I don't care who he's killed. I don't care about the gold bars. I don't care about this cast, frankly. I think Ava DuVernay, again, she wanted to symbolize the Civil War. She wanted to personify it by making it a family dispute. But she got the wrong actors. She did not give them meaningful arcs. And the problems just get compounded when you look at the chintzy production values and the fact that this doesn't look better than a syndicated show from the 1990s. And just, again, it's apolitical. There's nothing about 2024 that feels like this is addressing. And so, yeah, what is the point? we're constantly asked to care about Skell getting out of this DMZ, but the only person I care about escaping is me. It's an incredibly drab post-apocalyptic movie that just doesn't have anything interesting about it. It's, a flat not recommend. Easy to ignore.
You know, I think about a DMZ, a land between two warring factions where combat is forbidden. And then I think about this show, and I'm caught between the line of recommend and not recommend, where I'm really not strongly moved in either direction. I think I liked the show better than you guys did. I thought it was diverting. I thought the actors did a capable job from the leads who were newer to acting. There's a lot of people here who I went to look up and say, what have they done before? And they don't have Wikipedia pages. All the way through to the established stars of Rosario Dawson and Benjamin Bratt. And I think that the production value here is decent. There's not a lot of scope, but what they did well enough that I never felt I was in a backlot or on a cheap set. I always feel like they sold me that this was a gang-ridden war zone.
You felt like you were in New York?
No, a gang-ridden war zone, Stuart.
Okay. All right. Just clarifying.
In another state or in a parking lot somewhere, but not New York.
Yeah.
But the problem is I didn't connect with any character. The story of a mother searching out her son was one I liked in the beginning, but once they found each other and it became her trying to win him over, I was less enamored. And I also felt cold between the little romance between Odie and Nico and the romance between Skell and his girlfriend. And outside of the personal stories, what pulled me into the show was the discussion of the DMZ becoming its own nation and having an election and standing up to two warring factions who abandoned it. But that macro story isn't really told here. I like what world building they did, but they just didn't do much. I liked the election plot best of anything going on, but Jacob, you talked about how when we establish governments, there are soldiers with guns to enforce that election, but here in the DMZ, I see nothing like that. The only people with guns are gang members, and so I needed more world building to help me care about this election. And much like this year's Alex Garland movie, Civil War, the Civil War here is left completely unexplored. And I get it. In both cases, Civil War and DMZ, the intent is to tell a personal story against the backdrop of an American Civil War. But are you telling me absolutely none of the reasons for the Civil War, no ideological differences, have seeped their way into the DMZ? There aren't some people in the DMZ who want to join one side or the other and are just trapped there? I mean, you could take a story like Gorky Park or even the recent Tetris movie, which takes place against the backdrop of real-world political events, and trust the viewer to know about those events, or if they don't, to go learn about them. But when you're inventing a dystopia whole cloth, you need to do a better job fleshing out that world. So DMZ passed the time, but it never really interested me. By the end of episode 3, when Wilson died, I was pretty much ready for the series to be over. If I wasn't watching this for Now Playing, I wouldn't have made it to the end. It's a not recommend.
Yeah, easy, right? I mean, there's just nothing. And again, that's inscrutable given how meaty the concept is, how relevant this material should be. Again, as you've already pointed out, the parallels to election and what we're going through, this should be the most important movie of the last 5 years, and I won't remember it next week.
I'm not going to wait till next week to forget it.
It had such ripe opportunity, and that's without even knowing the source material. The source material you talk about, Jacob, sounds really good, and I would have liked to have seen that movie.
Strong recommend. Go read it.
But, hey, we're not done with DC Comics. I mean, we're reviewing this because next week we're reviewing a real DC movie, Joker, Folie à Deux.
What does that mean? A second folly? Is that what that means?
What it means is madness shared by two.
Okay, which no one outside of Paris knows. I really think that this is a terrible, terrible title.
Didn't you watch the Olympics? Did you pick up no French over that 2 weeks in August?
I did not. But I did like Joker, and we'll see. It's interesting to think about that storyline continuing, but we'll see how it goes next week.
And in the meantime, hopefully you've been joining us on our Friday Gold Donation series. We have reviewed 2 classic sci-fi films, one from the 50s, one from the 70s, both tellings of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And now this Friday, we get to our 3rd telling of that same story, coming out in the 90s. It's too cool, though. It's just called Body Snatchers.
Yeah, Abel Ferrara, who is a very 90s filmmaker. He made a lot of indies about being strung out on heroin or police brutality. Ugly movies about New York, is going to do one of his few horror genre efforts. And how does it go? Well, it was an indie movie. It was not a big hit. But some people will tell you it is an undiscovered classic. We will find out this Friday.
Yeah, it's got quite a cast with Gabrielle Anwar, Forrest Whitaker, and Meg Tilly. So there are some names here, even if it's a movie I've seen the cover of, but I haven't seen the film. I'm looking forward to it, though. It's got a good pedigree coming behind it. Hopefully you can join us this Friday and support Now Playing and get to hear all of our Crow and Invasion of the Body Snatchers reviews for a donation of $25 or more. Every penny you donate goes to keep Now Playing operating. We really do need your support, and we thank you in advance for your support of our show.
Hear, hear.
And Jacob Stewart, thank you for joining me. And until next time, keep it real and always keep it dope.
Stupid on you, lady. Now you're dead.
Not anymore.
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing podcast movie review. We hope you enjoyed the show.
They adore you.
Well, I work hard for it.
Help us spread the word about this show by leaving a 5-star review on Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, or your podcast store of choice.
Just had to convince a guy he wasn't going to get hurt for voting.
Want more reviews like this one? In the archives section of NowPlayingPodcast.com, you'll find more than 1,000 in-depth movie reviews from our panel of hosts.
In all the world, the sun shines a little brighter here.
On our site, you can hear reviews for every installment in the world's biggest film franchises, including the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Wars, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, James Bond, Middle-earth, Jurassic Park, Fast and Furious, and Transformers.
Hang out and have fun. We'll be doing this all day.
Plus, we have individual movie reviews, such as Titanic, E.T., Inception, Big Hero 6, Ready Player One, Pulp Fiction, Apocalypse Now, Doctor Strangelove, and hundreds more.
The people here just need someone to listen to. They'll listen to you.
And come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com next Tuesday for another all-new movie review podcast.
Follow me, okay? Follow me.
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
I am asking you to help me build something new here.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
You come into this world naked and alone, right? And we leave it naked and alone. You got to get you and yours squared up.
And you can join our crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews.
So we can use all our voices to build a new kind of power.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
You did all these?
Yeah.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
Leaders lead. Call it what you want.
Now Playing is edited by Santiago and Arnie.
I always wanted to sort this out with blood and bone.
Now Playing credits read by Brock.
I'm gonna whip this crowd into a fine lather.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Everyone believes his lies anyway, and real consequences play out.
And?
And people start dying. But he doubles down on his lies And the way others react make his lies come true.
What does that tell you about truth?
That it's irrelevant.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein. All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended.
You know we got eyes everywhere, girl. There are forces way bigger than you involved here.
Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of and may not be used without the express written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
Say the rest of me too, you dumb bitch!
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2024, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
It's game over. I won.
We gotta talk about budget. We gotta talk about sex. We gotta talk about sets.
Well, you can talk about sex, too.
Yeah.
Some bad sex in here.
I wish there's sex going on. Something.
Oh, there was.
Yeah, true.
A lot of lounging in beds.
With all those spray cans.
Mm-hmm.
But we gotta talk about sets. There's just so much to talk about.
And Jacob Stewart, thank you for joining me. And until next time, to victory!
Isn't that from 300?
That was the line. Yeah.
Yeah, oops.
Did you use your 300 line?
Yeah. I'm like, why are you using that here?
I mean, you could have said it was from this. I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, right? Who remembers a line from this?
And until next time, keep it real and always keep it dope. I was wondering where to victory came from myself, and I was
I'm like, maybe they yelled out when they were fighting each other. Who knows?